Good morning. It's May 29th. I'm Maurice Barratt and I've got another Life in Lockdown for you. I want to talk about overcoming the world because we're told to not love the world nor the things that are in it. I'll read the scripture in a minute. Well, I've found that most Christians don't obey this commandment because most of them love the world. They love its fashion, they love the world's entertainment, they love its politics, they love its status, they love its culture, they boast about the culture of the country they live in. So we need to define what the world is. Well, the earth is physical. In the Bible, when it talks about the earth, it's talking about terra firma, everything that's physical, creation. But when the Bible talks about the world, the Greek word is cosmos, it means the order of things, the fashion, the culture, the politics, the ideology, the way of thinking. And clearly Satan's the god of this world, so he's the god of the thinking, he's the god of the media, the god of the fashion, the god of the politics. Think about this. Well, I'll read the scripture, 1 John 2 verse 15. Don't love the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. Wow, that's strong. Let me read it again. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. So if you say you love God and you also love the world, you're committing spiritual adultery and you're lying. James 4:4 says it's spiritual adultery. He says, you adulterers and adulteresses, don't you know the love of the world makes you the enemy of God? That's pretty straightforward and pretty damning if you love the world. Well, John describes what the world is in his epistle, 1 John chapter 2. Verse 16, he says, all that is in the world, so everything that's to do with the world, it's illicit under three headings. The lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. And he said it's not of the Father, but it's of the world, and Satan's the god of this world. So let's look at the three. The lust of the flesh, what's that? Well, the things that satisfy our flesh. Food, so overindulgence in food or sex. Drugs, and I'm talking about prescribed drugs. Many Christians are addicted to prescription drugs. Thrills for risking our own life. So driving 200 miles an hour in a racing car, it gives you a thrill, it satisfies the flesh. Bungee jumping. Watching horror films, it does something to our flesh. It shoots adrenaline when we're frightened. These are all addictive. The things of the world are very addictive. The lusts of the flesh, very addictive. Number 2, the lust of the eyes. Well, that's surely covetousness. What I want. It's actually idolatry. What's the idol? Well, we covered me, you. We're the idol. We become the idol. You see, God's idols have to be satisfied. I want. You've got to satisfy me. Well, I'll read Colossians chapter 3 verse 5, Paul says, mortify therefore your members which are upon the earth, fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection, evil concupiscence, and covetousness, which is idolatry. So there it is, it's not my thoughts. And the third one, the pride of life. So, status, affluence, education, breeding. We all have it in a measure, the pride of life. Well, how do we overcome the world? That's what I want to talk about. Well, the Bible tells us it's our faith that overcomes the world. I'll read that direct scripture in a minute, but first Romans 12, verse 2 and 3. Paul says, don't be conformed to this world. Don't let the world squeeze you into its mould. Don't think like the world. Don't have the attitude, the disposition, the mindset of the world. But be changed, be transformed. How? By the renewing of your mind. Start to think differently, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. For I say through the grace given unto me to every man that's among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought. There's the pride of life. But to think soberly according as God has dealt to every man the measure of faith. It's our faith that overcomes the world. And here's the scripture, 1 John chapter 5, verse 4 and 5. For whoever is born of God overcomes the world. If you claim you're born of God, why aren't you overcoming the world? And this is the victory that overcomes the world, even our faith. You only get victory over the world by your faith. The problem is faith's much more than believing. Christians think faith is believing, but it isn't. The devils believe and tremble. They haven't got faith. They're disobedient. Faith is linked to obedience. If you believe, you act. Faith without works is not faith. It's dead. It's inoperative. It doesn't exist. So only the faith that has actions accompanying it is true faith. Otherwise, you only believe that you believe. So we have to do something to prove our faith. And I suggest you start by denying yourself. If you want to follow me, Jesus said, the first requisite is to deny yourself. Well, we love the world and the things that are in it. They're not necessarily sinful, but they're to do with the world, and we are not of the world. So if you want to be a disciple, start to deny yourself. It's not difficult. Start to cut off the world's influences. Most Christians watch far too much news, which isn't news, it's propaganda these days. They watch far too much comedy and entertainment on television. You can start small. I started 40 years ago by just cancelling the newspapers because I found myself reading all the scandal. I was waiting for some juicy bits, and I thought that's not good as a man reading about who's been raped and all the sexual deviance. It was doing me no good, so I cancelled the newspaper. Maybe you don't have a problem with the newspaper. I'm just talking about how I started. It was just the beginning. When you start to deny legitimate things, God says, and he'll do what you can't do, but you've got to make the first move. Draw near to me, I'll draw near to you. The onus on us is to be holy. The onus on us is to live differently than the world. God will not do that. He's saved us, he's given us his power, but we have to overcome the world by our faith. And don't forget, faith is what you do, not what you believe. Hebrews 1:6, my last scripture. But without faith, it's impossible to please God. Many Christians don't please God because they taught faith, but they can't live it. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is. Well, the devil believes that he is. Every Christian born again believes that God exists. But it says something else, and is a rewarder of those that diligently seek him. That's the operative part. That's the faith part. Not believing that God exists, but seeking him because he rewards those who seek him. Well, I've said enough to provoke you, surely. I'll finish with a few words from a Charles Wesley hymn. We used to sing it. It's very applicable. I think about it often. Dead to the world and all its toys, its idle pomp and its fading joys, Jesus my glory be. Have a wonderful week. Start to deny self. Start to change your influences that are worldly. And you'll begin to overcome the world. But you've got to do something. It won't happen because you pray. It won't happen because you believe it'll happen. It'll happen because you do something. Faith is action. God bless you. See you tomorrow for another blog. Have a wonderful day.